Alright, so I wanted to tackle this for quite a while, and I wanted to share with you guys why I am jumping ship from Adobe Premiere Pro to Davinci Resolve Studio 14. The jump was rather simple for me. I actually have just been progressively more and more disappointed in Adobe's release notes and what they're actually putting into their programs, what updates they're making, and how they're claiming to really improve their current products. With that being said, I started looking elsewhere and I looked at Final Cut and then Davinci Resolve Studio. And based upon the title of this video, I'm sure you can guess I chose Davinci Resolve. And I cannot tell you how happy I am I have made the switch. It is a phenomenal program, very well thought out, and in all honesty, you get a free version. If you feel like you actually want to try it, it is completely free for you to try. And honestly, I tried it for about a month. I invested the $300 now for the entire license. And from what I've gathered, as long as you have a license, you get free updates because they not only produce this software, they have a video compositor as well called Fusion 9, and they put out their own cameras, which I would love to have. But that's for another day. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to Davinci Resolve, and let me share with you my 5 reasons that I made the switch from Premiere Pro to Davinci. So here we are in Davinci Resolve. And the biggest reason, and let me pull out my phone here, I have my notes that I wrote down. So first and foremost, the biggest reason I made the switch to Davinci Resolve, or one of the biggest reasons, was the workflow. Now, I don't know about you, but inside of Premiere Pro, I feel like it can get rather clunky. And yes, I know you can customize all of your windows, add and take away windows, and all of that. It was still rather frustrating, and it still felt extremely cluttered in my opinion. Now, you guys have seen my web design. You guys have seen how I like to lay things out. You've seen templates I've developed. I really strive to keep things very open, very breathable, and this is a phenomenal, they did a phenomenal job in doing that, and especially with the workflow. And it comes down to the fact that you have individual tabs for each of the kind of workflows you'd use in film or video editing. You have your import tab where you can actually go through and browse everything that you have, or browse all of your files so that you can find all of your footage. You have all of the footage, and you can see here I have kind of a demo project. I was shooting a video trailer for Jennifer, and this is kind of the first scene to that. But you have your import tab, you have an edit tab, which is strictly dedicated to editing. While you can do quick mixes audio wise, it is just very open, very easy for you to reach in and grab a clip and just add it to your timeline. And again, I do not feel lacking in any way with not having a billion windows here with effects that I can add. It seriously helped me focus strictly on editing, on making sure my video timeline is coherent. There's no crappy jump cuts or anything like that. I get to strictly focus on what's in front of me without thinking, oh man, I need to color this right now and fix it to match it, which I totally will admit, maybe I was ADD, but I did do a lot of inside of Premiere Pro because the tools are just sitting there for you to use. They're just like, hey, you should totally start color grading right now, even though you're editing. Yeah. So that was a huge deal to me. Anyways, you have an edit tab, you have a color tab dedicated to coloring, and a dedicated audio tab, and of course, export. So right there, you can actually see they did a phenomenal job. They've pretty much found what seems to be a consistent workflow that goes from every video editor or videographer or cinematographer or just editor in general, and they've pretty much encapsulated it in this one program. And on top of that, I want you to know that you can use this program with teams. They do have the ability for you guys to be working on the same timeline, similar to how Adobe's Premiere Pro works as well. And that was recently released, so I think that's really cool, and I would definitely take a look. But again, number one is workflow, and I can't tell you how much this has really helped me optimize my personal workflow. It's just been all around incredible. Number two has to be the user interface. Now, I lightly covered this And I can lightly cover it for this as well because this is strictly opinionated, and I totally understand that. You may like Premiere Pro's interface a lot more, but personally, I love how DaVinci Resolve went through and made everything so open. I mean, again, here's your file finder, here's your editor, and you can remove the inspector right here, so you can actually click on a clip. You can preview it in this window here, and then you actually have your timeline window right here. And of course, like I said, you can mix audio should you need to on the fly. But I love how open it is, and you still have all of the necessary tools. They're just nicely hidden, so that way you're not overwhelmed. And if you have your entire timeline, you can hide your media pool. And again, I understand you can customize windows in Premiere Pro, and I want to stress this. This is my opinion. I personally have grown tired of Adobe and how they have all of this money, and all they seem to be doing with it is pumping it into Adobe stock so that way they can make more money. I mean, that's kind of where I am with Adobe. That it goes far beyond just how lackluster their updates are and how their programs aren't progressing like I feel they should. But I love what these new companies are doing, and in all honesty, I want to support these other companies because they're growing and they actually are listening to their users. Like from the most recent version previous to DaVinci Resolve 14, 12.5, these guys have improved the program leaps and bounds, and I cannot stress that enough. If you were to take a comparison between Premiere Pro's updates and then DaVinci Resolve's updates, it is unbelievable the difference in how they are actually taking care and listening to their community. So that small rant aside, their interface is beautiful. I love that I can access, even in color grading, all of their tools. I don't have to go through a weird window and just go through color, find a new tool that I want to use, apply it to a random layer, and so on and so forth. It's really clunky to me. It kind of seems it's linear, but at the same time, it is not fluid. In all honesty, which is what I want my workflow to be. I want it to be as fluid as possible. I want to be able to have an idea and then just start working on it and feeling and have that project evolve naturally, rather than like, oh, let's click this, let's dig for this tool over here, sub window, yada yada. They have it all beautifully laid out, easily to navigate, and it seriously, when I started learning, if you have any experience with Premiere Pro, you can probably pick up DaVinci Resolve within 5 to 10 minutes. It is that easy. But that is the user interface that I love. And then this brings me to number 3, which is huge. And I mean it. This is huge to me. This program in itself is powerful. Now, I understand plugins are really helpful. And for me, when I used Premiere Pro, I probably had noise reduction, and I had a few other ones that I cannot remember exactly what they were. But I haven't had to use any additional plugins for DaVinci Resolve. Now, with that being said, that is kind of the difference you have. You have DaVinci Resolve, which the free version does not come with a noise reduction, but like I said, this would be great for you to test it out, see if it fits your workflow. But I love the fact that I purchased the studio version, which is currently $300 USD, and I have all of the tools that I use built in. For instance, and I'm going to really focus on the color tab here because that's where most of the tools are found. So let's go ahead and select this clip. Now, on my MacBook Pro, I am currently using not the trial, but the free version. So on my desktop, I have the full version, the studio version. But I have a denoiser here, and it won't necessarily let me apply it. As soon as I apply it, it will give me a DaVinci Studio or DaVinci Resolve Studio watermark on the actual shot. But I can adjust all the noise here and actually apply effects in here. And furthermore, the thing that I love the most is that I do not need to bounce back and forth between After Effects and this program to track a simple mask. So for instance, let's say I wanted to highlight Jennifer's body here. So I can go here, I can create a mask, and we'll go ahead and make sure it's on this particular tab, the shadow. We're going to create a new mask, and we're just going to make it really big. We're going to feather it quite a bit, and we're going to focus in on the edge of her shirt, something easy for her or for the computer to track. So what I've done is I've created the mask, and you have all these different shapes here. And then you have a track window, and it has a built-in stabilizer even inside of the free version, which is wonderful. And in all honesty, I've had better luck with this stabilizer than I actually have on in Premiere Pro. So that says a lot. But don't get me wrong, Premiere Pro has a great stabilizer, but I feel like these guys just took it and put it on steroids. But you can track the window, and then you can literally select the clip, and you just click track, and you'll see we get all of these tracker points that are just focused on her shirt. And then I could do whatever I want with this mask. I could go to the colors, and I could just blow the crap out of it. You know, just do really whatever I want, but I don't need to go to After Effects to track a simple mask. And that is ridiculous to me. And even just, yes, my computer can handle having both of the programs open at the same time easily, but it was so frustrating that I had to constantly go back and forth. I don't know why that was such a huge deal to me. I mean, you shouldn't have to jump from your video editor to track something so simple as actually highlighting somebody's face. And that's just my opinion. Again, this entire video is opinionated, so please understand that if you like Premiere Pro, I'm not trying to dog it, but this is everything I found for me personally. So moving on from that, we have number 4, and like I said, number 3 was I love that it's a powerful standalone program. I don't need to add extra things because it has so much already built in. Number 4 is the color grading. I already mentioned this earlier. That is what made me look at Davinci Resolve in the first place. So here we are in the color tab, and I'm not going to go in too deep, but normally, like I said, you'd have to search 3-way color corrector. You'd have to then add it to a layer, and then you'd have to try and match each one or just copy and paste. Again, maybe I had a horrible workflow in Premiere Pro, but it was just really clunky, really annoying. So with the color grading tab, what I love is just how in-depth the tools are. Like I just said, normally you'd have to dig through Windows and find it, apply it to a video clip and copy and paste, so on and so forth. But here, you have all of your tools already laid out. Their curves are phenomenal. For some reason, I feel like their curves maintain so much more detail than what I've seen in Premiere Pro. I don't know how they do it. I'm blown away by it, and I am so thankful for it. But their curves tools, they have additional curves like hue versus hue, where I can literally go pick this green, and we'll isolate it like that. And then we'll just rotate it, and you'll see I'm turning it to like red. And I can isolate different colors. And again, I know you can do this in Premiere Pro, but it's just so easy to go through and do all of this without having to dig through Windows, remember what tool names are what, so that way you can apply them to your clips in the future. It's just so intuitive, so easy to use, and I love it. I cannot stress it enough. And for this, I feel like you almost have to play with it in order to understand how incredible their color grading system actually is. So I would recommend doing that. I'll have a link in the description to Davinci Resolve, and like I said, the free version is you can't export to 4K. You don't have a noise reduction. You don't have face tracking. So if you're doing interviews or something like that, that is what that is for. And that's mainly the 3 biggest features that you're missing out on. Are they absolutely necessary? No, but I definitely felt it necessary to invest in it because the noise reduction for me, I'm using a GH4, is incredible. I need to have a noise reduction. And I went ahead and invested. But anyways, with the color, just test it out. I'm telling you, you can go through each of these tabs, and you might have a different layout than I do, but you have your camera raw. So if you're actually importing raw footage, let's say you already own a Blackmagic camera, and if you own a Blackmagic camera, you already have the studio, so I don't know why you're watching this, but you have your camera raw, you have color match, you have your color wheels, and not just that, but you have additional wheels like your primaries bars, and then of course your log. You have your RGB outputs, and again, you have motion effects with noise reduction, curves. You have a qualifier so you can isolate skin tones. For instance, I can go to this particular node here, click here, and just hit Shift H to isolate, and I've isolated that particular hue, where you can actually adjust how much of that color you want. So we can isolate just her skin, which is right there. And that is so cool to me. I was just like blown away when I saw that. But anyways, that is how incredible their colors are. You have masks, tracking, blurs, keying for your layer system. And what I should mention, it is node based. So this is a huge feature I probably should have mentioned at the beginning. It is node based. So you're reading it from left to right. So what you would do is you'd have your initial grade, and then this would be a layer, if you will, on top of it, another layer on top of it. But what's cool about the node system is you actually have layer mixers, you have parallel nodes, and again, we can get into that in the future. But all in all, this opens up your creative freedom by an exponential amount, and you have incredible control. So that is number 4, which is color grading. I probably went way too long on that one. But number 5, and I've already mentioned this a few times, is the fact that they have a free version. So I feel like I've beat that one to death. So number 5, I'm sorry, I already mentioned it throughout everything else, but you have a free version. There's no harm in actually trying this program. And in all honesty, I should add a number 6. And number 6 is their playback is phenomenal. I do not have to use proxies anymore when I'm using my 4K footage. And I have yet to have Davinci Resolve crash from playback. I've had it crash from trying to track like a huge like raw shot, and it crashed with that. But I can't tell you the amount of detail that was in that shot. But from actual playback, I can play it back at 24 frames per second with my 4K resolution, and I can even do so on my 2012 MacBook Pro. It's phenomenal. So I would seriously check this program out. I am done with Premiere Pro permanently, and I mean that. The thought of using Premiere Pro, and even After Effects for that matter, really just frustrates me because it just seems so chunky and so blocky, and it doesn't flow like I actually want my workflow to be. It's not fluid. So that I highly recommend checking out Davinci Resolve. And should you have any questions for me about this particular program, I mean, I will admit, I am still somewhat new to editing. I still feel like a noob, but at the same time, I am extremely comfortable in this particular program. So should you have any questions, by all means, shoot them my way, and I'll do my absolute best to answer them. So if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, because that will help this video be seen by others and hopefully help them. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. But thank you so much for tuning in, and again, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks, guys.